chapel, the spiritual heart of Houghton College. Okay, for most of us it's probably not the case, but there's been many a God moment in this place for a lot of students. For some students, however, this place is far from a spiritual home. For some, it may be more like a tomb for someone they once loved but is now dead and buried. For some, this is a place of trauma, and others, just a mere inconvenience. My name is Adam Reinhardt. I'm a senior religion major here at Houghton College, and I'm a Christian. Heck, I'm even studying to be a pastor. So how is it that in my senior year at a Christian college, at least 4 of my best friends are atheist or agnostic? Here at Houghton, there's a lot of opportunities for students to tell their story, so long as their story is a story of faith. These non-believing friends of mine never get a chance to have their story told. As a senior, I want to leave behind a challenge to Houghton College, to this community, that we would become a better listening community, to hear the stories and experiences and perspectives of the students here who are most unlike us, who are the most different. It is my prayer that we would learn to listen well to the other in our midst.
Hard to be a decent human being.
Hi, my name is David Gianetti. I'm an intercultural major. I'm a senior here at Houghton College, and I currently identify as an atheist.
My name is Luke Doty. I'm a senior writing and English major, and I'm an agnostic.
Hi, my name is Gregory Young. I'm a sophomore here at Houghton College, doing a double major in philosophy and religion, and I would currently consider myself to be a Christian.
I'm Christopher Vermer. I graduated from Houghton in 2010 as a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy, and I'm an atheist.
Can you tell us a little bit about your story, your background in the Christian faith?
I grew up Catholic for the first half of my spiritual life until I was about 9 years old. Then I switched to a non-denominational evangelical church, so all my background is kind of evangelical. My faith was always really important to me growing up. I was kind of one of the high schoolers who didn't really know I wasn't vocal about it, and I didn't argue with people over it, but I definitely went to work camp each year and looked forward to it, and went on retreat and went to youth group all the time, and at points tried to get friends to come. So I definitely was intent about practicing my faith, and it was really important to me, which is why I went to Houghton, because I wanted to kind of quote unquote avoid the hedonism of normal college life. Yeah, I guess I got saved when I was 14 at work camp. I remember accepting Jesus as my savior, it all making sense and everything. I can remember saying yes to that. Before that, it was just kind of religion, but then it was a personal faith, and it made sense. So that was kind of my conversion moment, I guess.
I grew up in MK, so pretty much as straight up Christian as it gets without being a PK, missionary kid. So I grew up overseas with my parents. They're Wycliffe people translating the Bible. So I was either around people who I didn't or couldn't speak to because they didn't speak English, or other Christians who were translating the Bible. So a very Christian, very, very Christian upbringing. Everybody I knew believed in God, so it meant a lot. Maybe not to me personally, but it meant a lot. Nobody wants to go to hell after they die. Nobody wants to suffer like that, and nobody wants to make their parents disappointed. It's changed my behaviors. I didn't smoke or swear or drink or disobey a lot, and I tried harder in school than I would have otherwise, and I lusted less, and I masturbated less, and when I looked at porn, I felt horribly guilty about it, and it was a lot of guilt about a lot of things, and a lot of things that I should have felt guilty about. It was, I don't know, belief was what kept things in check. Belief it didn't really. It was something that I was supposed to have. Kind of like if your parents really wanted you to be an engineer, but you were really bad at math, so you just kept trying even though you never got it. Or keep writing letters to a pen pal who never writes back, that kind of thing. And then feeling guilty that you aren't really corresponding with them.
Well, I was born into a family with a father who served as a Baptist minister. I grew up from the time I was 4. I attended both a Wesleyan school and a Wesleyan church. I was always very accepting of the Christian tradition. I mean, when I was younger, I'd have pastors, youth leaders saying to me that I thought outside the box, but really, this was only in the arena of kind of the pseudo-philosophizing that happens at Christian secondary schools, where if you're even thinking at all, they give you a gold star. But I was never really very iconoclastic in my youth or anything. And I did have moments, obviously in the aftermath of Charles Finney, most people who grow up in the evangelical tradition get saved upwards of 50 times. And so there were different intervals, like maybe every 10th time would be a true experience of renewal. I took it very, very seriously. I think this actually led to much of my questioning because for me, in so much of Christianity, this kind of diluted version of Christendom is fine, acceptable, and feasible as long as nothing goes outside of the church walls. Sadly, some churches are guilty of saying that anything but what the church deems as good is worldly and therefore of the flesh and even evil. And I very passionately accepted this renunciation of anything worldly. And I think that this is what later brought me to a radical skepticism. I always searched for the something amidst the nothing. And by that I mean the yes where Christianity says no. I was always trying to find, when a commandment was uttered not to do something, what the purpose was. And I'm not saying that always turned up void either. It just always saddened me, even I think at a younger age, that people are so worried about what we shouldn't do, instead rather what Christianity does truly offer, because of its only shying away from a life than what actually is it.
I grew up in the Christian church. From the youngest I can remember, I was in church. And it was an evangelical church, so the whole idea of being a Christian was really this concept of giving your heart to God. And that was pressed into us from as young as I can remember. Meaning I didn't really have a conversion experience. There wasn't any dramatic shift from not believing to believing. Christianity was always big in my house. Every Sunday we went to church. It was a pretty steady self-identity.
So can you tell us the story of the event or the process which ultimately led to your deconversion?
Yeah, it was while going through a particular bout of bad depression. I kind of had this moment of existential atheism, similar to Christ's experience. Well, as Christ's experience on the cross, it was a moment of existential atheism, a moment of feeling God forsaken and abandoned by God, and feeling alone in the universe, and like God was dead and non-existent, and had no operative power in the world. So I experienced that moment, and through a period of just sufferings related to mental illness, just really never kind of learned or found God in any embracing way that I could take into my trials and understand, but instead felt abandoned by everything and lost sight of everything through this just one existential experience. I hate to say it was just one existential experience, because faith isn't founded on feelings, but it wasn't just how I was feeling. It was a core understanding of how the universe and how the world is shifted within me, and I cannot move back to the pre-understanding. Something within me does not allow me to accept the things that I once accepted and to embrace faith in the way that I did before. I was really depressed, and I was about to cut myself at the time, and I just was like crying out to God for help and wondering where God was, and had been going through all these doubts and wondering how God fit into everything, and had been reading a bunch of theology on my own time, and had been looking into questions, and it just all stopped making sense at that point, and it just all kind of failed in that crucial moment when I felt like I needed some recognition of divine action. It was all gone. Instead, I felt the opposite. I felt the loss of it all. So
One day, I was sitting out on the steps in front of the townhouse I was living at, and I looked up at the sky, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if God didn't make this? And so I decided not to believe that God made it, and that was it. But I didn't want to believe in God. That my whole life I believed in God, but I didn't want to. It's kind of like, I don't know. I figured if God existed and I should be a Christian, I would want to be. And if God was good and He was around, and He was all love and stuff, then I would want Him and that and everything that comes with it. And I didn't. So I figured I shouldn't. It was extremely liberating for me. And I kind of, just at the time, thought, well, see what happens if I pretend like God doesn't exist and I'm not a Christian anymore. And I'll do it in secret. It'll be like a little experiment, and we'll see if hellfire rains down and my whole life crashes down and everything goes to hell. And it didn't. And I found that when I took God out of the equation, all the structures in my life maintained their integrity. But no, really, the only hard thing about not being a Christian didn't have anything. It had to do with other people and how they perceive me. Telling friends and family who are Christians that I'm not a Christian, which is tantamount to telling them that I'm going to hell. That's not fun. And telling people that you love, that it's like telling them that you're going to kill yourself eventually. It's not. I love not being a Christian. It's great. I just would, but I don't. It's not great for other people for me not to be a Christian. So I guess it's a selfish decision of me.